She never told you what she wanted, but there was a moment you remember when her gaze paused not on your words, but on your distance, not on your kindness, but your composure. It was not warmth she responded to, but the shape you carved in the room by not reaching for her. Like an artist stepping back from the marble, she admired not the softness of your heart, but the symmetry of your silence. And when you spoke less, she leaned closer. When you withheld, her pulse stuttered. You began to suspect this was not love. This was geometry. There is a law she obeys without knowing, a principle buried in the folds of her affections, guiding her toward what cannot be bent. She walks past devotion, past goodness, past declarations of need toward something colder, cleaner, more ordered, toward the man who is not explained, only implied. And perhaps you already feel it, not in her words, but in her selection. The pattern is ancient. It does not speak. It pulls, it measures, and then it chooses, not based on truth, but on form. She does not want you, not the way you think. She wants your outline, the discipline of your edges, the way your silence falls with precision, like a column standing alone in an empty hall. There is no hunger for your story, no reverence for your goodness, only a desire to approach a structure she cannot collapse. She is not drawn to chaos, but to containment. The man who does not overflow, who does not explain, who does not chase. That is the shape that seduces, not because it promises pleasure, but because it suggests a hidden design she cannot rewrite. You feel it the moment you step back, not with cruelty, not with games, with a kind of exact distance. Suddenly, her breath shortens, her laughter sharpens. She observes with more intensity, not because she understands, but because something in you does not move for her. And it is precisely that stillness that draws her in, like a flame flickering behind frosted glass. She wants the glass, not the flame. She wants the discipline, not the warmth, and this is not manipulation. It is order. Nature seeks symmetry, not sentiment. Her instinct does not ask whether you are kind, but whether you hold, whether you bend too easily, or stand with an unseen center. The kind man who explains himself is ignored. The generous man who spills over is passed by. But the silent man who moves with purpose, he is not understood, but he is pursued. Why? Because she cannot find where she fits, and that not knowing pulls her deeper. You think she responds to your effort. She does not. She responds to your architecture, your rhythm, the restraint of your presence. You could recite poetry, bring gifts, profess loyalty, but if your form collapses under the weight of her desire, she leaves, not out of cruelty, but because the mystery is gone. You have become too known, too reachable, too safe, and she does not fall in love with safety. She falls in love with shape. There was a time you made her laugh, made her feel adored. You thought that was the beginning, but it was when you left the room early, not late, that she remembered you. When you didn't stay to please, when you stood, when you acted without asking. That is what echoed in her. Not your tenderness, but your boundary. And the truth is simple. Women admire boundaries they cannot erase. They do not want to destroy you, only to test if they can. And if they can, the game is over. She touches your arm and studies your reaction. She makes a joke and watches whether you soften. She says nothing and watches whether you lean in to fill the silence. Every moment is a measurement, not of emotion, of proportion, of containment, of how well you hold the line between presence and absence. It is never spoken, but always felt she desires the man who does not require her desire to stand. You believe this is about her feelings, but feelings are only noise. Beneath them is structure. She is searching blindly, instinctively for form, for a frame that can carry weight. The man who needs her to see him crumbles. The man who waits for her to choose him shrinks. But the man who simply exists clean, whole, unmoved becomes the axis around which her curiosity rotates. It is not arrogance she is drawn to, it is alignment. The subtle, ruthless elegance of a man who is already shaped before she enters. Not sculpted for her, sculpted before her. She does not fall for the man who adapts. She falls for the man who refrains, the one who does not explain what he is, because what he is can be felt, not argued. Do you remember the man she couldn't stop watching? He wasn't loud, he wasn't impressive, he was precise. His words were chosen, his walk had a rhythm, his gaze rested but did not plead. He didn't reach for her, and in that absence of reach, she leaned. You thought it was magic, but it was geometry, proportion, power restrained, not expressed. You thought women wanted kindness, and some do, but not until after attraction, and attraction is never born from kindness. It is born from contrast, from mystery, from the outline she cannot complete in her mind. The unknown is more seductive than the proven. You become too predictable and she forgets your name. You become too available and she forgets her hunger. Even in your most generous gestures, she reads proportion, not gift, but posture. She wants to feel the structure that gives the gift, not the emotion that spills it. You think she hears your compliments, but she hears your weight or lack of it. Every move you make is a signal. Are you formed, or are you seeking form in her? And that is the truth no one told you, that love, in its raw state, is not about emotion. It is about essence, about whether your form speaks before you do, whether your energy orders the space around you, whether you are an accident or an arrangement. And she knows, not with thought, but with breath. She knows. You try harder, you say more, you show more, but with every word, you lose tension. With every explanation, you reduce your shape. You think more connection equals more attraction, but she wants distance with meaning, space filled with presence. She doesn't want to know your soul. She wants to sense your center. The man who vanishes when not praised, she forgets. The man who waits for her choice, she overlooks. But the one who does not wait, who walks, who exists, he becomes the riddle she cannot drop, the form she cannot dissolve. The shape that reminds her love is not chosen. It is summoned, not by emotion, by essence. And now you begin to see. It was never what you did. It was how you stood, how you withheld, how you did not chase the wave, and so the tide changed course. You did not become her desire. You revealed what she could not shape, and in that, she found the hunger she could not name. It is not cruelty to hold your line, it is clarity. And the man who holds himself becomes the invitation she cannot refuse. Because her instincts do not love, they orbit around strength, around restraint, around a stillness that does not ask, but simply is. She does not want to complete you, she wants to reach for you. And if you collapse too soon, she forgets why she looked. But if you remain still, exact, untouched, she returns, again and again, not to conquer, but to feel what cannot be claimed, the form beneath the skin, the structure that never yields, the shape she cannot name, but must obey. She circles you like a moth that refuses to land, not because you burn, but because you remain unmoved, unlit, unwilling to flicker for her wings. And this is the contradiction that traps her. You do not chase, and yet she feels pursued. You do not bend, and yet she feels shaped. It is not your effort that entangles her. It is your refusal to perform. Your silence does not retreat. It holds. It does not echo her voice. It makes her speak into absence. And in that absence, she imagines you again and again. This is not indifference. It is design. The kind that turns air into gravity. You have been taught to believe that motion means meaning, that pursuit means love, that the man must move first, faster, louder. But her soul does not respond to volume. It responds to direction. And the one who has direction does not move toward her, he moves regardless. She feels the arc of his movement, and it terrifies her, because it is not about her. It is not about anyone. It is about something deeper than attention. It is about purpose. And that is what draws her, not a man who waits, but a man who continues. You do not make her feel loved by chasing. You make her feel important, but importance fades. She wants to feel oriented. She wants to feel pulled by something she does not understand. Not because it flatters her, because it reorders her. The man who becomes her axis does not plead, explain, or prove. He stands where he always stood, and the world turns differently in his presence. He is the stillness that moves all things. And she cannot look away. You misunderstand power. You think it means control. You think it means dominance. But real power is immobility. The tree that does not fall during storms becomes a landmark. She returns to it again and again, not to cut it down, but to rest against its form. You are not meant to bend with her moods. You are meant to remain unchanged, not because you do not care, but because your care is not reactive. It is grounded. She tests, always, not to destroy, but to feel where the center is. She pushes with silence, with distance, with confusion, and the man who follows her patterns vanishes. But the man who remains in his own pattern, he becomes a myth, a structure she cannot erase, not because he resists her, but because he answers to something else, a direction not dictated by her moods, a law not written in her language. That is the fear she cannot name and the attraction she cannot refuse. You think she wants to be your world. She does not. She wants to orbit your gravity. She wants to feel that if she left, your world would continue, not bitterly, not performatively, but naturally, inevitably. And then, paradoxically, she returns, because you do not need her to remain. The moment you need her, she doubts. The moment you release her, she searches, not for attention, for alignment. Her unconscious does not want a man who dissolves into her. It wants a man who shapes her rhythm without touching her. The men she forgets were loud, visible, emotional. The one she remembers, he was precise, still, clear. She could not find his wound, could not press her thumb into his weakness. And so she obsessed. She wanted to know why he didn't chase, why he didn't explain, why he didn't respond to every glance. And in that absence, she created stories, because stillness creates space, and space awakens imagination. When you are still, you become the screen upon which her desire is projected. Even your presence becomes architectural. How you walk, how you sit, how you respond to silence. She is not listening to your words. She is reading your form. The man who explains himself ruins the illusion. The man who remains unreadable becomes legend, and legends are not loved. They are followed. She does not need to understand you. She needs to feel you, not as a man with emotion, but as a pattern she cannot dissolve. What if your stillness is not apathy, but power? What if your silence is not emptiness, but direction? What if your refusal to kneel is the only way she learns to stand beside you? Because when you move too quickly, too eagerly, she becomes the center, and she does not want to be the center. She wants to find it in you. The most dangerous man is not the cruel man. It is the man who does not need to move. The man who can wait, not in bitterness, in clarity. He waits not because he is passive, but because he is whole. He does not run toward what flickers. He does not answer every echo. He simply stands, and because he stands, she returns. Not because he demanded it, because he made it unnecessary. You were told to prove yourself, but proof is for the uncertain. You were told to pursue, but pursuit is for the lost. What she wants is not action, it is orientation. She wants to see whether your stillness has weight, whether your silence has structure, whether you are motionless because you are aligned, not because you are afraid. And if you are, she feels it. She always feels it. She chooses unconsciously, not based on kindness, but on order. The man who apologizes too soon, who softens too early, who reveals too much, he becomes visible too quickly. And what is fully visible loses mystery. What has no mystery loses magnetism. What has no magnetism becomes irrelevant. You think you're being open, but openness too soon is exposure, and exposure, unearned, is forgettable. There is a violence in stillness, a tension, a quiet confrontation. She cannot dominate it, she cannot dismiss it, and that is what keeps her engaged. Not because she wants to win, but because something in her wants to submit not to you, but to the structure you represent, the form that does not change for her, the logic that is not rewritten by her storms. This is not a game, it is a truth, an ancient one. Aristotle knew the unmoved mover is the cause of all motion, not because it chases, but because it is what all things chase. The one who remains becomes the point around which desire arranges itself. You do not need to pull her, you need only to be as you are, as you were, as you will remain. When she tests you, remain. When she withdraws, remain. When she cries, remain. Not cruelly, not silently, but structurally. Your presence is not the gift. Your presence is the ground, and only when she feels the ground does she choose to stay. This is the irony: the more you move for her, the more she flees. The less you move, the more she returns. Not because she wants control, but because she wants to feel something that cannot be moved by her emotions, something that survives her waves, something that reshapes her without ever speaking. And now, perhaps, you understand. The stillness is not absence, it is direction, it is center. And the man who becomes a center does not need to prove, does not need to please, does not need to move. He becomes the hidden logic behind her chaos, the structure beneath her storm, the shape she cannot see, but always feels. You believed her eyes were mirrors, that in her gaze you would find yourself clarified and affirmed. But her eyes are not for reflection, they are for refraction. They bend you, distort you, reconfigure your edges to suit her inner design. When she looks at you, she is not searching for truth. She is searching for material, for the outline she can reshape, the firmness she can soften, the will she can unravel gently, sweetly, without force. Not because she is cruel, because she is human. And humanity does not love what it understands. It loves what it can transform. She calls you strong, but she watches for cracks. She praises your composure, but tests for heat beneath the calm. She desires your mind, but probes for its malleability. Her affection is not passive, it is investigative. She does not want a man who simply stands. She wants to know if you can be moved by her. And the moment you are, something unspoken collapses. The ritual is broken. The form dissolves. And all that's left is another man who tried to be enough by becoming less. She offers softness as a blade, compliments that open, smiles that lure, not as deception but as method. She is not trying to destroy you. She is trying to see you, the real you, the one that exists beyond reaction. If you shift to please her, you disappear. If you answer her uncertainty with promises, you collapse. She doesn't need more of you. She needs less movement, less yielding, more shape. She does not fall for the man who tries. She falls for the man who is. And yet, you keep adjusting. You sense her hesitation and you lean forward. You hear silence and you fill it. You feel coldness and you compensate. And in each small movement, you disappear further. You become not a man, but an echo, a reflection, her creation. And once she can see herself in you completely, she grows bored. Not because you did something wrong, but because there is nothing left to wonder, nothing left to challenge, nothing left to form. The tragedy is subtle. She wants to submit not to dominance, but to presence, to weight, to form. But if you melt too quickly, if you mirror too eagerly, she becomes the one holding the chisel, and no woman stays in love with a statue she herself has carved. She wants to feel that you were carved elsewhere, long before her hands, that you came with shape, with meaning, with edges she must learn, not erase. And if she cannot feel that, she remakes you and then discards you. Even when she praises your vulnerability, she watches how it behaves. If it spills uncontrolled, she grows uneasy. If it is used as currency, she turns away. What she desires is not your bleeding, but your containment. Not your wound, but your restraint. The man who can feel deeply and speak rarely becomes sacred, because he offers access without surrender. And in that narrow passage, she finds the thrill of reverence. But the man who cries too soon, who confesses too fully, who undoes himself at her feet, she sees him, then forgets him. And you blame her. You say she doesn't care. You call her cruel. But she is not cruel. She is tuned. She can feel what has shape and what is shapeless, what has gravity and what floats. She cannot articulate it, but she moves accordingly. Her desire is geometric. It follows tension, and you, in your longing to be loved, dissolve that tension thinking that kindness will hold her. It won't. Only form holds. Only silence that speaks of depth. Only distance that suggests weight. Only mystery that is not performed, but embodied. You mistake conversation for intimacy, but intimacy, for her, begins when she stops understanding you, when your face stops reflecting her expectations, when your presence unsettles something deeper than her mind. She wants not answers but presence, and presence, when true, is not pliable, it is not eager, it is not soft, it is exact, like stone, like direction, like fate. You were not meant to be her mirror, you were meant to be her axis, the line she cannot bend, the gaze that does not plead, the silence that does not flinch. She doesn't want to talk about everything. She wants to feel something she cannot explain, and when she does, she returns, again and again, not to you, but to the version of herself she feels in your gravity. You become not her prize, but her measure, her standard, her myth, And only when you stop moving for her does she start moving toward you. The danger is always the same. You begin with stillness, and then, slowly, you yield. You respond too much. You ask too often. You fear too deeply, and she feels it. The unraveling, the softening of structure, and then she begins to mold, not consciously, but with the instinct of one who senses too much surrender, and she cannot help it. She molds until there is nothing left to press against, and then she mourns what you were, not because she hated you, because she loved the shape you abandoned. Even her resistance is a search for your form. When she argues, when she withdraws, when she confuses, she is reaching, not for control, for containment, to see if you will hold, to feel if your outline will resist her reshaping. And if it does, she trusts it, she trusts you. But if it does not, she pities you. And love does not survive pity. You try to understand her, but what if you are not meant to understand? What if you are meant to remain unknown, not confusing, not erratic, but precise in a way that requires silence? She does not want to explain you to her friends. She wants to feel undone when you enter the room. She wants her heart to lose rhythm, not because of fear, but because of weight, because something ancient has entered, something unshaped by her, something she cannot mirror, only orbit. You are not her reflection, you are her threshold, and if you let her walk through you, she will forget you. But if you remain a door she cannot quite open, she will return, not to conquer, but to be transformed. This is what no one tells you, that you are not meant to be legible, not meant to be open completely, not meant to be safe. You are meant to be still and deep and exact, so that when she stands in front of you, she must become still and deep and exact too. You are not her mirror, you are her form. And the day you realize this, truly realize, is the day she cannot look away. Not because of beauty, not because of charm, but because you are no longer bendable. You are no longer shaped by her mood. You are shaped by something else. And in the face of that, she becomes silent. Not because she has nothing to say, but because, finally, she has something to respect. Now she sees, not you, but the shape that does not collapse, the gaze that does not mirror, the man who is not pulled. You are no longer the reflection, you are the image itself. And she, for once, is the one who must reflect, somewhere, in a dream that was not hers. She glimpsed you not smiling, not calling, not reaching, just standing. There was dust in the air, and something ancient behind your eyes. She stepped forward to ask a question, but no words formed, because the answer was already there, and it did not move.